Yo, what's good? It's your boy Rayshawn from the Rayshawn Gatson Anime Podcast, or RGAT for short. And on today's episode, we got a special guest for you guys. Tom Gibis, the voice of Shikamaru, who is known for Naruto Shippuden, Boruto, and also Digimon Adventures. Join us as we dive into the world of voice acting, exploring Tom's personal journey and achievements, uncovering his anime origin story, and also sharing tips for anybody out there trying to get into voice acting. If that sounds interesting to you, then sit back and enjoy the ride. And don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you're listening or watching.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Gibis. I play Shikamaru Nara in Naruto. That's the biggest thing that you probably know me from. Most of what we do when we're doing anime is cold reading. You know, you read the script and then they want you to perform what you just took in, and really it's the best idea wins. Support can just be like, okay, you're free to go do that. You know, we're not inhibiting you from doing that. You know, we're going to let you go do what you want. My dad used to say, when I went to college for acting, my dad said, well, you can always be a salesman. That's good. That is a good skill to have, being an actor. It's great. Like, you can always do sales. I have to live to see that idiot become Hokage.
Oh, yeah. Doing the fourth grade
can't do it without me, right? It's like you were fighting one hand behind your back this whole time.
When you're already fighting with one hand behind your back, you know, you already can't use juice.
I challenge myself. You want to be a voice actor? That's hysterical.
First thing we do is get them on their own. We have got to tackle them individually. I'll get a hold of them. You guys can stay out of it. And the diversion? That'll be me. I've got this.
Fear not, I'll pay their bill. All I know is everything happened 4 summers ago when I first saw Gorillamon in New York. I thought it was simply another ape climbing the Empire State Building. My, that's strange. I wonder if that means we all had an encounter with the Digimon at the exact same time.
Before we get started, I just want to allow my guests the opportunity to introduce themselves, basically tell everybody what you do, where you're from, and also tell us your top 2 favorite Naruto characters and why.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Gibis. I play Shikamaru Nara in Naruto. That's the biggest thing that you probably know me from. I'm an actor, did a lot of stage, I did a movie called Beautiful Girls. I've done commercials. I worked the Disney Cruise Line. I did a lot of that kind of stuff. And I've done a ton of anime and animated stuff. You could probably look me up and find out. But most of the stuff people don't care about. What they really care about is Naruto. And we've been doing that show for 20 years now. And my 2 favorite characters are, let's see, well, one of them is definitely Rock Lee.
Okay.
And then the second one, I would say, well, I'll be corny and I'll say Naruto.
Naruto? Okay. Well, at least you didn't say, Shikamaru, you know what I mean?
Well, I think that goes without saying. I didn't want to be like, the thing I like about Rock Lee is that, if you look at what can the show speak to you about, what can you get out of the show? I love the message that Rock Lee is. He takes defeat and he doesn't say, I got beat, and he's not sore about it. What he says is, I need to work harder. I need to do one more push-up. I need to do the extra mile. I need to train harder so that next time I won't be in this situation. And I love that. That's a great attitude for life. It's a great lesson. If people are going to take something from that show, it's that idea of don't give up. Don't let a setback destroy you. Just figure out, like, okay, how do I prevent that from happening again? And the other thing I like about Rock Lee is he doesn't have any crazy jutsus and, shadows and lightning that comes out of his hands. And, he just has to do it all the old fashioned way. And he does it very well. And that's why I kind of, I think that's such a great character, and he's funny, so that's the, those are my reasons for why I like Rock Lee. And then Naruto, because, he's the heart and soul of the show. And that just, again, that never give up. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to make opportunities for myself, and I'm going to follow through, and loyalty and friendship and all that that really helps you succeed in life. And I think those are really good, strong, positive messages that you can take away and apply to your own life. And that's kind of what I love about those two characters.
For sure, for sure. I have to agree with that. For Rock Lee, I would say, I mean, that's literally the only ninja in the well, I'm not gonna say the only ninja, but one of the few ninja in the leaf or in the world of Naruto that actually fights with just their hands. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
In a world where people can shoot like fireballs and everying.
Yeah.
So
And he doesn't
it's
be afraid of anything. Like there's guys coming at you that, can see right through you. Like, he doesn't,
Hey,
he's like, okay, let's go. He's ready to go no matter what. So, and I think for him, he's ready to lay down his life if he has to for his friends, because he knows he has those disadvantages. So, good for him,
yes, I always say one of the best moments in Naruto has to be his fight against Gaara. It's one of the most
Yeah.
climactic moments in Naruto.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But for
I
my
also like the
oh,
drunken ninja fight, too.
oh
I
yeah,
love
that's amazing.
I love that he has trained so hard that even semi-conscious, he knows to dodge from the blows. And like he's so good. His body has been so trained that he can fight even when he's not, really there, or his body can defend itself without
Yes.
the need of his conscious mind. I think it's just so funny. I mean, it's great. Yeah, and the Gaara thing when he rips off the weights and throws it
Oh,
down, you're like, oh, you're fighting. It's like you're fighting one hand behind your back this whole time.
when you're already fighting with one hand behind your back. You know what I mean? You already can't
exactly. And
use juice.
I challenge myself. What are you talking about? You're outmatched by this guy.
Man, it's some crazy things. But I think for the whole drunken fist, I think that's amazing that literally in that state, he's damn near unbeatable. If he can just stay in that state, he would be crazy. But I like the fact that they bring it back to like old martial art movies when you see like Jackie Chan and Jet Li do that same type of similar style. So I think that's pretty cool to see that.
Well, I think Rock Lee. I think he's based on Bruce Lee, and
Yes,
so
yes.
that's kind of where they were going with that. That he was, and I think that's a nod to what is it? The Drunken Master.
Hmm.
There's a old kung fu movie that's the Drunken Master who but he's finding redemption along. Anyway, that's kind of what I think they're kind of giving a little tip of the hat to that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I can see that. But for my favorite two Naruto characters, I had to go with Kakashi for my first one. I think for being one of the strongest Jonins in the Leaf, he is amazing. Also being Tsunade's right hand man, because I always think like if you think Hokage wise, that was the only person she could send out to basically do everything when she had to stay in the Leaf. So you gotta give Kakashi his props, and I'll say Jiraiya too, but yeah, you gotta give Kakashi his props.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's the main mentor for our main characters, and he was always set a good example. Even though, if you think about it, he's been through some of the same trauma and the same things that they went through, but he's actually a good example of how to actually go through it and trying to actually be on the good side, and also having companions like my guy help steer you in the right way, type of thing.
Right. Or Asuma.
True. And for my next one, I chose Obito. This one is kind of hard pick because I'm also a big fan of masked Obito versus when he takes the mask off. Because to me, I
So
believe
you
those
mean
are
Toby
two.
when he's Toby or when he's Obito? Because there's Toby that's
Yeah,
possessed by Madara, and then there's Obito in the mask, or the man in the mask. I think they just call him that. And then there's finally Obito.
I'm gonna say man in the mask when he's like walking around with the deep voice. I like
Yeah,
him in that way because I think he's very more mysterious. He comes
yeah,
off like you don't know what's gonna happen in a lot of these situations. Like when he went to the five Kage summon and he's declaring war and he's even telling them that I'm not at my strongest, but in that situation, I still feel like you're still playing the heavy cards. I mean, you're
yeah.
one man, and all these are considered the strongest people in their villages, and you're looking at them like, I mean, what
Nothing.
is it? What is it about? What's about to happen? So I've always liked that version of Obito. I feel like he kind of loses it a little bit when the mystery, once the mask come off. He just doesn't have it as much to me, but he's still my favorite
Yeah,
character. I like
that whole storyline about him, it's so like, because you're right, it was a mystery, but even the revelation of the mystery, but
him.
who he really is,
Yep.
you know. And then it's so, the whole thing, it's the great thing about our villains is they're I've heard somebody say that they're broken heroes. And if you tell the story from their point of view, you might actually be on their side to succeed. You know what I mean? They take it a little too far, and that's their downfall, or that revenge becomes the thing that fires them. Like Naruto's main motivation isn't revenge.
Mm-hmm.
It's loyalty to his friends. He tries to protect his friends, but he's not out there trying to destroy other people because of something that was done to him. Because look what has been done to him in his life.
Yeah, I mean, he was right there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what just show having companions and stuff like that can help you get through that. But
that's right. That's right.
You can tie his storyline really with Obito, because I mean they really had that similar type of they want to help everybody, teamwork type of mindset as a kid, and then situations happen to them and how they both take it in different directions.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, and I think that's what makes a good villain, because you sympathize with them and their cause to a certain extent, and they're cool because villains are cool, and then once you understand where they're coming from, you kind of go like, I don't know if I'd do much different in that situation based on the information that Obito had, where he felt like Kakashi betrayed him and the whole thing. It's like, yeah, you'd be mad too.
Yeah, I think
but he was being lied to. He's basically, he was being gaslit by Madara.
I think it's funny you use that term gaslit, but
yeah.
For a good example, I think Pain, when Pain is basically describing his point of view to Naruto, and you get a moment where Naruto is actually like hesitating, like, oh my God, what you're saying could be right, because he's basically explaining like, you guys are from this great country, and y'all basically do these wars, and y'all don't think about what happens on these little countries between these big countries. And basically, what about my family? How do you think they feel when we die? And stuff like that. And Naruto's just sitting there like, you have a point. Wow. And that's when I literally started to realize, villains can actually have these great storylines behind them and have moments when you have to sit back and be like, whoa, ugh.
Yeah, that's what makes it really good writing, makes great storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not just so clear the heroes are heroes. Heroes can sometimes be villains and do bad things. I was thinking when you were talking about that, the relationship between Naruto and Gaara.
Yep.
And Gaara was just all angry because he had this tailed beast stuck inside of him and he couldn't sleep, and his life was and he just wanted to take it out on everyone. And Naruto said, I have the same thing, and we're brothers, and I love you. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna try and help you no matter what. And it works. Like, he turns that guy around, which is it's pretty amazing. Little same kind of thing with Sasuke, but Sasuke kind of had the same beginnings as Naruto. So Naruto just never giving up on him, because he doesn't give up on anything. That was a little more clear because they were friends, even though probably Sasuke never considered him his friend, because he just hated. Now, nobody liked Naruto when they were little. They thought he was obnoxious and all of that kind of stuff. And, Sasuke just didn't have time for any of that silliness, and because he was too busy brooding about his own problems. Nothing against Sasuke, but you know what I'm saying? That Naruto, just through sheer will, can kind of turn somebody like Gaara around, and very similar to what we were talking about with what your position about talking about Obito and stuff. So, just made me think of that relationship as well. So.
True. It just shows you the power of like companionship, and then basically being able to have a strong will and basically not be able to be deterred and help people even through their situations and stuff like that. So I've always liked that about Naruto and everything. And also I would say, like, I think for Sasuke, I think that was like just bonds and how they believe how bonds made them strong and stuff like that. Because for Naruto, the stronger his bonds were, the stronger he's became. But for Sasuke, it just didn't seem like it was working the same way. So that's when he started cutting his bonds and becoming a single person by himself, which
I see.
ugh,
Yeah, yeah.
but all right.
What Sasuke needed to learn was, there's the family you're born into,
Yep.
and then there's the family you create yourself. And like it or not, Naruto decided, you're my brother.
True. And sometimes the
Sasuke
family.
already had a brother, but at that time he thought his brother was Darth Vader, the worst of the worst.
True.
That's another good story, like Itachi's story. It's like through most of the series, everything we heard about him, we thought this guy's awful, and then we realized what he did, why he did it, and what he was doing, and that he really is the hero of this story. And that, again, that's such a great turn. It's such a good twist. It's such a nice, because the whole time, even Sasuke was like pissed at him, and then to find out like, no, I've been watching out for you, little brother. Like, it's like, oh my God, it's so nice, Anyway, good show. And we didn't talk about anything I do in it.
Well, we're about to go ahead and jump right into our interview. For my first question, is kind of bringing everything we kind of talked about into just one kind of a question. With a show with so many huge characters that, I mean, some are minor characters, but still take off like huge personas like Itachi. He's not like in the story all over the place, but he still has a big name. And you play a character, Shikamaru, who is not necessarily in the main cast, but still has such an important role and such a notable figure. How do you think that becomes such a thing?
Well, I think because they took time. We had 900 episodes, whatever, if you add it all up. It's 250 for Naruto, 500 for Naruto Shippuden, and then we go into Boruto, and I throw Boruto in there because you still learn more about Shikamaru and his character through the whole thing. And they had time to like focus on Neji. They had time to focus a little time on, Kiba and Rock Lee and these side characters, Tamari and Hinata, and all the sort of friends that are in this class, and they all go beyond just a stereotype, the smart guy, the chubby guy, Choji, like there was more to every single one of those characters than just their
Archetypes.
In a way, like I would say, like they're archetypes, right? In a way, like every one of us went to school with a Choji, right? Every single one of us knows a Hinata. Everybody knows that smart guy that sits in the back of the class, never studies, and gets an A on every test, and it makes us crazy, right? And everybody knows that kind of Naruto, the kind of immature and just like, oh, it's just shut up, kind of guy. And so we identify with those characters, and that's why I think the show is so good, is because the depth they give everybody. They're not two-dimensional characters. They become three-dimensional characters. Now some characters are serviced a little bit more than others. And then, when you look at like the popularity of an Itachi or Naruto's dad, right? Like Minato, right? Yeah,
yeah, Minato.
And you think like screen time wise, he didn't have that much, but because he was talked about and he was so important in Naruto's life, just as a mystery, that when he finally does get to talk and we get to get a little bit from him, like he becomes like the number one most popular character in the show, like in a lot of fan surveys and stuff. And you're like, oh, that's interesting, because he doesn't have a lot of screen time, and yet he left such a big impact on the story arc. Like he's so important to the story. I think that's kind of interesting, And then Shikamaru, like I'm in like some 500 of those 900 episodes. Like, he's there and doing the work, and it is funny because I go to conventions and people come up to me and go, you're my 5th favorite character in the show. and I don't take that as an insult. I'm like, I'm in the top 10, you know what I mean? Like, I get it. There's so many great characters in the show. I'm happy to be, in there somewhere. So I don't take that as an insult, In the beginning, it was like everybody, of course, is going to love Naruto. That's their number one. True. And then sometimes you might get, oh, you're my 2nd favorite character or whatever. It's like, great, good, thanks, And then you move down the list, but you realize, you look at all the characters, the Sasuke's and the, Sakura, everybody, Kakashi. It's like, all of them. There's so many great characters in there. I get why people would gravitate to one or the other, or they see something in themselves that resonates with them, or it's just that it's too hard to pick. So I never take it as an insult. I always go, thanks. Glad to be up there.
See, I always see Shikamaru as just like a regular person, you know what I mean? Who just happens to have to do this ninja stuff. Even though he does have abilities, more abilities than like Rock Lee. But I just feel like even though Rock Lee doesn't have those abilities, he's still like can do more.
Yeah, it's that naturally gifted as opposed to work really hard and get rewarded.
Yep.
And then you go, if Shikamaru had Rock Lee's attitude,
oh man,
what could he do with the world? Well, he fails up, right? He doesn't want to succeed, and yet he keeps moving up,
And that's hilarious.
I think
about it.
He's at his core, he's a good guy, and I always liken it to it's the guy that will pick you up at the airport or he'll help you move, right? Shikamaru will do that. He will complain about it the entire way to the airport and back from the airport. And then in the hopes that someday you just won't call him because it's not worth the trouble. But he will do it. He will do it.
And every time you call, but every time he's going to complain the whole ride there.
That's right. So at a certain point you go, I'll get Neji to pick me up. I'm not, It's
my next question.
I know he'll get up and he will come get me, but I don't want to listen to it.
I feel that. But my next question I wanted to ask you, when did you know you wanted to be a voice actor, and what were some of the driving influences?
I think it's funny. It's kind of a thing now, but definitely when I was starting out, it wasn't like you were a voice actor,
Okay.
You were an actor, and ever since I was little, I wanted to be an actor. I'm in like 5 years old,
Oh, that's amazing.
And part of that was because it's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it would be like, I want to be a forest ranger. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a cowboy. I want to be a doctor. And then you go, hey, you know what? The one job you can be a doctor, a plumber, a lawyer, an accountant, you can be an actor, and you can do all those things. You don't have to limit yourself to being just whatever the job is. And
saves you on the student debt too.
What was that?
I said it saves you on the student debt too.
Yeah, exactly. Become a lawyer or a doctor. And I don't know if I had, what you need to become a doctor or a lawyer. I only play a genius on TV. I don't, So, I at a very young age, I determined I wanted to be an actor. And initially, like I remember like in junior high school, which is pretty early to start making decisions. I mean, because I didn't know any actors. I grew up in the suburbs in Minnesota, West St. Paul's where I grew up. We didn't know any actors. We didn't know that was a real job you could take. I knew people did it, but you always think like, oh, they're touched, by God or something, and they become these great actors. They're not regular people that, And then when you think like, Tom Cruise sat in 4th grade, English class with somebody. He didn't come out and he's like, hey, I'm Tom Cruise and I'm going to now jump out of an airplane as a 2-year-old. Yeah. He went to preschool with somebody. He went to kindergarten with somebody, and everybody was like, yeah, that guy says he's going to be an actor, whatever, and, but any actor you can name had the same beginnings as all of us, And so anyway, long story, even longer. I was going to be a forest ranger. That was junior high. That was my I thought, okay, I can do that. I would like to do that. I had this dream of driving a Jeep and having my dog with me, going to a fire tower, looking out the thing. Working for Yellowstone National Park or something like that. I thought that's great. And I actually started going down that path. We had this naturalist club in high school and stuff like that. I was in Boy Scouts and all that. And I truly liked it. I really enjoyed it. I just never thought there was any career for me in acting. At the same time, like when we do a school play, I would do the school play. And I thought that would be fun. And at a certain point, I found out that in order to be a forest ranger, you have to have a lot of math background because they do things like because with forestry, they do things like if this tree can produce this many acorns, how many of those acorns are viable, and how can you keep a forest, healthy after, and there's all this like, there's a lot of math, computations and stuff they have to kind of know. Same with like, if you want to be a doctor, you really got to know math and you have to know science. It's like, math is not my area.
They don't put that in the commercial, do they?
Yeah, no, you don't think about that stuff. And so then I was like, and then I found out that the U.S. Forestry Service only hires like 4 people a year. And they have actual, you go to college and they say you can get a degree in forestry. And it's like, why are you even offering that? Maybe one college in the United States could offer it, and that's the place where everybody goes, because there's only very few jobs out there that actually can. And then I was like, well, those odds, I could be an actor. It's the same. Everybody's saying the odds are against you, but odds are against you to become a forest ranger, a full-on forest ranger. So I thought, maybe I'll just do that. And I started doing like community theater. And then I went to college and I studied theater, and I got a degree in acting and directing from Minnesota State Mankato, and which is in Minnesota. And then I did an internship at the at the Children's Theater Company of Minneapolis. I later worked at the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis, which is like this huge regional theater. And basically, I was one of those guys that was like, I want to do everything. I wanted to be on sitcoms. That was probably my goal as a kid. And then once I saw Saturday Night Live, I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. And so I really pursued a comedy side of it. But I did commercials. I did, I did all sorts of crazy stuff, and worked at theme parks, did anything to make a buck and kind of be acting. And I did that for a long time. I came out to California pursuing that dream. And I ran into somebody who was a friend of mine who was one of the directors on Digimon.
Oh, okay.
And I said, hey, I'd love to do cartoons. I've done all this other stuff. I'd love to do cartoons. I think I got an interesting voice, and I can do characters and stuff. And I love that. I think that'd be really cool. And he basically shot me down right away. He's like, yeah, you got kind of an interesting voice, but
everybody do.
If you don't know how to do ADR, I can't use you. And ADR is voice replacement. So like for us, ADR is the show is done in Japanese, and then it's translated to English, and then you got to put the English in the animation. And the big trick on ADR is that the flaps from the character have to match the words. And if it's well written, that's not a problem. But most of the time we have to like do it in the booth, trying to figure out how to make those flaps, precise. And if you watch English dub, we, especially on our show, Naruto, they were like obsessive about it. Like it had to be perfect. And in Japan, they're not even that concerned about it.
Yes.
Even though they're animating around their voice, you see that there's a lot of like flaps and nothing happening or whatever. And so we were like really like, it's gotta fit. And in the early days, like when I learned it, I learned how to do it the hard way. And the hard way is they give you 3 beeps, you come in, you have 2.5 seconds to say these 5 words or whatever it is. And it is exactly 2.5 seconds. If you don't get it, do it again, and you do it again, and you can do it again. And then like the really old school guys that did it that way, you can say, and I'm still not good at this, but you could say this loop is a second and a half, and they can feel the difference between a second and a half and 2 seconds. And for me, it's like it just feels, it should feel the way it feels. And sometimes I'm right and sometimes I'm wrong. But there are people that are that precise, and it was really a craft. And then also to add on top of that character and try and make the character come to life, and all of that. And but you're confined by you can't put an or an or take a breath or put a pause in there to like make it more important to what you're saying. You have to do all the acting while making it fit and making it work in what you have, the 2.5 seconds or 5 seconds or 9 seconds or whatever you have. And that's really hard skill to learn. And that's why very few people, it was a very small club when I first started doing it. And I every day I thought, I'm going to get fired because I'm just not up to speed. They had a sort of a loops per hour you needed to meet. And, and there were people, they still talk about people that are just legendary, could do it in 2 takes, do stuff, just crazy stuff. People like Wendy Lee, people like Steve Bloom, just masters of timing and being able to do that craft. And then probably maybe into our 2nd or 3rd season of Naruto. So I'd been doing voiceover for about, I think, 5 years when the audition for Naruto had come up. I'd done a ton of little shows, a lot of soap opera stuff.
Okay.
Well, Japanese anime soap opera stuff, like
okay.
Prince of Tennis, Marmalade Boy.
So no General Hospital or nothing like that?
No, yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't mind doing. See, I'm that kind of actor. If I could do a day on General Hospital, I'd be happy. And
I know my grandma would love that.
Yeah, I played the spoiled rich kid in a lot of those shows where it's usually like a private girls' school, and then there's boys that they're interested in, and in Prince of Tennis we were at a private boys' school that we had an excellent tennis team, and I was kind of the rich jerk that kind of taunted the protagonist in the show. But whenever we'd play another team or whatever, the other guys on the other team would try and make fun of him or whatever, and I would defend them because it's like a big brother little brother thing. Like, I can make fun of them, you can't.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And so anyway, I got an opportunity to do Naruto. That was 20 years ago, and I think where I was going with that is, like, I think the first couple seasons we did it kind of the old school way, and then somewhere along the line, might have been very close to when Naruto started, they brought in a thing called Pro Tools. And Pro Tools, you do the line and they can make it shorter, they can slide it, they can fit it, they can lengthen it, they can slow it down, they can speed it up.
Okay.
If you do too much of that, it's like auto tune. It, like, all of a sudden it doesn't sound right. But you can do a little of it, and you can, like, you're just a hair late. They can fix that. So you'd have a good take, but you came in just a hair late. Now they can move it, and they can set it in there, and they can maybe stretch it just a hair. And again, you can only do it a hair. If you do it too much, then it just sounds distorted. Excuse me. And so Pro Tools came in, and that gateway to entry to that, anybody could do it. Like, really anybody can do it. And that's when I think you really started to see in animation in general, all of a sudden these big stars that were in movies and television and stuff were appearing in animated features and that, and they started billing them. Like, if you think about it, the old Disney movies, Snow White is Snow White. We don't know. You can look it up and you can do a little research. You can find out the actress who played Snow White, right? Now today, if you were going to do Snow White, it would be somebody who's hot right now, maybe one of those kids from the Disney Channel, grew up a little bit,
Yeah.
Selena Gomez type of person, and it would be like, it's not Snow White, it's Selena Gomez as
Snow White.
You know what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
And then if you think of it like voiceover that way, sorry, I got a dry throat. If you think of it voiceover that way, all of a sudden you started, like, I just remember thinking, like, Shark Tale came out. It had Robert De Niro, it had Will Smith, and you go, it's a movie that's for young adults. Like, well, not young adults even, it was for kids. It was like, 9 years old is probably your top of that. It's like from 6-year-old to 12-year-old. That's your so 9-year-olds, your, like, median age. They don't know who Will Smith is, and who do they care Robert De Niro is? And they were billing the movie that way. And they're doing that because they're selling it to the parents, right?
True.
And think how many times when you watch an animated feature now, where you go, I know that voice. Who is that? That's that's Dwayne Johnson. You know what I mean? Like, you don't think, like, that's Maui, you think
Yeah.
that's because because he's been in so many movies and he's done everything. He's excellent as Maui, by the way. But the point is, you kind of in the back of your head, you're not just accepting it as Maui. You're accepting it as Dwayne
The one
Johnson.
playing
Yeah.
Maui. Yeah, I see what
Yeah,
you're
you
saying.
know what I mean? So Pro Tools kind of changed the rules a little bit, and really then you could basically turn anybody into anybody who had, I'm not saying anybody, but I mean, like, basically you didn't have to have the craftsmanship of learning the hard way to do it. For me, it opened up that I can now just focus on the acting.
Okay.
And it's funny how when you have a tool like that, you use a tool like that. And so I was like, yeah, now I'm just going to think about the line and try and deliver the best line I can. And unless
They
we're
can
way
edit
off,
it.
yeah, unless we're way off, they go, oh, that was a good take. Let's see if we can make this work, and they go, nah, you know what we got to do? We got to change the line a little bit. I love the read, but we're going to take this word out, or we're going to add this word to make it work. And do it the same way you did it before. And so you're doing it more on that route, which I think it's really freeing for an actor like me. And I can just be in the moment and give you the best line reading I can and I try not, we see it in the Japanese, and you kind of get a feel to, he takes a break here and there's a pause there, and it's all kind of noted in the way the lines are written down. Like it's like a little roadmap. It's almost like music. There's little, like, they'll put a comma in, and a comma means something different than like a little hashtag, and they have it so that, like, like they call them hitches, like it's not a full breath. It's kind of just you're moving into the next word. The guy who has the most trouble with that is Rock Lee, because he doesn't contract. So he can't say can't, right? He has to say cannot. So
Oh, okay.
if that line don't fit, you got to rewrite that line for him, because the rest of us would go, I cannot believe it, right? And they go, that's too long. And you go, I can't believe it. Perfect. Moving on. He can't do that.
So it's like, oh, man, we got to rework the whole script.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think this is a little theory. I read it somewhere. I don't know how true it is, but I believe that Rock Lee, because it's based on Bruce Lee, that he's Chinese, and it's an observation of Japanese, because that's the culture that Naruto was made
based on. Yeah.
That it's sort of a little take on how Chinese people speak Japanese. Like, you would know that that he talks a little different. He looks a little, like, his eyes are different. His haircut is different. He's a little different, the way he approaches the world. And he speaks just a little bit different. It's sort of like someone who's fluent in Spanish as opposed to somebody who learned Spanish in high school. If you were a Spanish speaker, you'd be like, it's just off a little bit. You know what I mean? Or like, if we know somebody that speaks English that isn't their first language, they're going to get some things twisted around, and they're going to say things in a kind of a slightly odd way. Even the best, like you get somebody that's from Sweden who's lived here for 25 years, and then all of a sudden there's like one or two words where you go, oh, that's like maybe Swedish way to say it. That's not really the way we would say it here. And I think that's the nod there that they're doing, is that Rock Lee is from China. And so he speaks a little bit different. He looks a little bit different. He acts a little bit different. But he's still our village. He's still our friend. He's still our, yeah.
Wow,
and it might be an inside joke for Japanese people. I don't know.
See, those things you never know, because it's another culture type of thing. I always tell people that's like, you never really know. We only get told what we've been told. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, part of it is because when you think the original series is written for Japanese people, for Japanese sensibility. Right?
Yep.
So, and then it's translated to English, and a lot of that kind of cultural stuff doesn't necessarily translate, because also the whole idea of anime, they looked at Walt Disney and what he was doing in the United States, and they fell in love with it, the Japanese. And they started doing animation and they loved like the big eyes, the Disney character big eyes, the Thumper, the Bambi, those kind of characters just had these really big eyes. And so Japanese animators started making their characters with really big eyes. And that became sort of a, if you think about what is anime, one, it has to be from Japan. And two, there's a certain little bit of style, not all today, anything goes. But for the longest time, it was that very distinct look of an anime character with the big eyes and the big expressions and stuff. Right. And so, but it's kind of a nod to Walt Disney, right? So like that's the original source material. And then it's sort of like the difference between my character and my Funko Pop of my character.
I see what you're saying. Saying.
They're both animated. They're both drawn, or the one's made into a 3D mold, and you could draw them, and you go, well, Shikamaru doesn't have a round head and 2 dots for eyes, but they can still somehow pull off that. You can get that's Shikamaru out of that thing. Mm-hmm. So anyway, neither here nor there. That's I don't know what was the original question.
Well, my next question I want to ask you. What do you find?
This whole interview could just ask me one question and I just won't shut up.
I mean, I'm here to listen to you talk. You know what I mean? Just you can keep going if you want to. Yeah. But my next question.
By the way, anything I say, to anybody out there, please research it because I make don't take me as
what your word is gospel.
Because I get things wrong all the time, and I'll be like, I thought it was that. And it's like, no, it never was that. I don't know where I got that from. Maybe I made it up. I don't know. So, but I that's my disclaimer. I will tell you a lot of things, and I think they might be true, but I'm not sure. Do your research.
Well, my next question I want to ask you: what do you find most challenging and rewarding about being a voice actor?
Challenging. Well, disappointing, I would say. We don't work in the same room together. When you go in, you'll work with the engineer and the director, and you're by yourself because it's already been done in Japan. So the most efficient way to record it is to just come in and do just your lines, right? So it's easy to move through that stuff. You're not waiting for the next guy, or if the next guy makes a mistake, you don't have to go back and wait. You're waiting on the other actor all the time. So it's very efficient that way. There's some pitfalls to that style where you're just doing your lines. Sometimes you're the first person to record, and so you don't get to hear what everybody else is doing. And in hindsight, you go, oh, I would have done it differently if I knew Miley was going to do it this way, or Brian was going to do it that way, right? And not that often, because if you have a good director, and we had Mary Elizabeth was our main director. She was fantastic. Like, she knew the show inside and out. So when something would come up, she would say, okay, she would know how to direct the other person to fit what you're doing and that. But if you're the last person to record, you get the benefit of hearing everybody talk, and then you come in with your line. And so it's kind of, because you can build on that. This is,
you can get the flow. You know what I mean?
The scene. This is the intensity of the scene. Plus, you get to see it because it's already been animated, so you can kind of get clues on that, and from the script, like how I should present it, how I should do the line, and so that is a bit of an advantage. But the downside being that you don't get to work with other actors. Most other forms of entertainment, if you do a play, you all rehearse together for 6 or 8 weeks, and then you put on the play and you do the show for how many weeks it's running, and you get to hang out with each other. You get to know each other. It's a lot of fun. We really, after 20 years, we really didn't get to know each other unless we knew each other from other things. Like Miley and I used to do improv comedy in Minneapolis 35.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so I've known Miley the whole time I did this. And but like Brian, I kind of knew of Brian. Brian Donovan, who plays Rock Lee. I haven't really met him. Mike Yurchek, who is Obito. But now that after pandemic, they've started sending us out doing conventions. And we never really did conventions. Miley did Naruto, but the rest of us, it was kind of like every once in a while you might get something. And then after pandemic, there was a big, because I think what people did during the pandemic was watch
anime,
100 episodes of Naruto. And then it was like kids were into it again, and the kids that had originally experienced it, who are now grown up, they were experiencing it again. And so we had a lot of interest in the show. And so we would go out and I get to hang. This is where I'm getting to with the story is I get to go out to dinner with Michael Yurchek. I get to go out to dinner with Brian Donovan. We get to hang out. We talk about the day and fun things that have happened at the con or the booth. And, all the characters, we've now become Doug Airholtz, who plays Asuma. We communicate, we talk,
Oh, that's pretty
we've now
cool.
become really good friends, but we never really got a chance to meet each other for 20 years, even though we all worked on the same show. And it's also nice because they'll start to go, "Oh, you're Shikamaru." I'm like, "Oh, I loved what you did." And I'd go, "Oh, what you did was fantastic." And I will say that a lot of people do a lot of different shows. And so you don't necessarily watch every episode that you're in. You might know just your little part of it. And certain people, and you hear certain names of people that are on the show, and so you're like, but you don't really know them because Robbie Reese, who plays Choji, I met him like maybe 3 times. Now we've done 2 cons together. We hang out. His booth was next to mine at the one I just did in Houston, and we chatted for like a couple hours. It's like, that's my best friend, but I met him 3 times
We are
prior
recording.
to 3 years ago, so 17 years, met him 3 times. And then now I've seen him, 3 times a year, so and we'll generally have really nice conversations, hang out, and joke, and, all of that. So it's a lot of fun, so.
It's interesting you say that because y'all share so many lines and scenes together. So it's like,
Yeah, but
wow.
we never met each other. Yeah, you might see somebody coming out of a session or into a session. And even then, because they were recording Bleach and they were recording a bunch of these other shows, in our studio, in the early days especially, they had these huge folders, 3-ring binders with scripts, and it would say Bleach, it would say Naruto, it would say, all the different shows that they were doing at the time. And so you don't even know if that person was working on your show or they were working on some other show. And
Okay.
Blue Dragon, or they did hundreds of titles, and some of us were working on all of it at the same time.
Hmm.
And I never got to do Bleach, but I wish I did, but I didn't get into Bleach as far as an actor. And but a lot of the people at the studio, and if you look at the cast list, it's a lot of the same Naruto people. There's a lot of cross pollination
Yep.
industry. And it's nice because you get a couple shows going, and now you're like going in 3 times a week, and it's like, oh, okay, good. Now you got a nice steady thing. I mean, the greatest thing that Naruto did for me was, for 20 years I had a job. I wasn't working every day, but at least you could go, what are you doing? I'm like, Naruto. It's a hit show. It's kind of cool. I might have not done a commercial in a year, but I did several episodes of Naruto in that year. And so
Yep.
it's like, for 20 years, I could always say I had a job. I was always working on something,
Yeah. And
so
they've
that was
had
kind of nice.
games and stuff like that. So you've always had something to do
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Naruto. So
No,
that's
I tell you, because if you go like let's say I didn't have Naruto and I go a year without getting a commercial, you start going, should I be in this business? I don't know,
yeah.
And if national commercials, you get one a year, you're pretty lucky in a way, because that's a tough, you get one, that'll pay your bills for the month, for, well, a couple months if it runs a long time, and it takes a lot of the pressure off. But and then just even as how you see yourself, if you see yourself as an actor and you're having some slow times, you have some ups and downs. There's times when you're like, God, I just booked like 3 things this month. It's fantastic. Things are going. I'm like, yeah. And then there's times when it's like, oh boy, the phone hasn't, rung in a couple of months. What's going on? But I always had Naruto.
Mhm.
I always had a couple of weeks, they'd give me a call. Can you come in for a session? Or if you're really heavy in it, it would be like, we're going to probably bring you in 2-3 times a week for the next 4 weeks while we do this arc. And I'm like, yes, so that was kind of, that was the nice thing about it. It was just like, as an actor, it was fulfilling because I felt like, okay, I haven't hit rock bottom because I've got this thing.
That's brings me into my next question. Basically, I wanted to ask you, one of my main reasons for bringing you on was to talk about your experience on Naruto and basically playing an iconic character like Shikamaru. Do you got any favorite moments or quotes from your experience playing Shikamaru or from Naruto in general?
The funny thing about doing cons is you really got to brush up on your stuff. Like we did it once. Nobody really asks about it, till 7 or 8 years later. And then
Mhm.
you're like, oh yeah, what was that? I kind of don't. And it is funny how much you do remember of things. And but since I've been doing cons, I kind of went back and I go rewatch certain sections of the show because there were things that fans would want to come up and talk about. And I had to kind of go in my head, what was exactly that scene about? And then I go watch it. And so I did my research, and I really was so I could really talk competently with fans. I didn't want to be one of those people that just said, "Yeah, I don't watch the show. I was just in it." And that was 10 years ago when I did that scene. So, whatever, or fake it. Like,
Yeah.
people say, "Oh yeah, yeah, that was a great scene. Yeah, uh-huh. Uh-huh."
Yeah, exactly what you felt.
So I wanted to be able to at least convince people that I kind of knew what I was talking about. And you didn't want to be like, did I say something wrong? And I get some of the names wrong, and I get, like the jutsus and stuff. And, then people will correct me and like, well, Rock Lee has, I don't know, a genjutsu, and you have a da jutsu. And see, even now, like, that's the kind of stuff where, I know that, what do they call it? Now, see, maybe you can even correct me, like, Rock Lee, because he
It's
can't.
taijutsu.
Taijutsu, right.
Yes.
You can't, but then genjutsu means you have like
The eye power and stuff like
and
that.
then you have the things in your eyes, which is like a Byakugan or
Mm-hmm. Sharingan.
this isn't Tom remembers terms from the show. But you want to be able to talk. So I'll say that I go, because he had that thing in his eye and he's doing the thing, and the kids will, or the fans will say, "Oh yeah," and they'll kind of correct me and fill in the blanks. So it's kind of fun. But I feel like if I'm hitting the bullet points, if I'm hitting the broad, big picture, what's going on in the show, and then definitely I know I'm an expert on Shikamaru, so I feel like that I can talk about, and so anyways, I mean, he's funny. He does that whole thing with the alarm clock, which is, really, should I get up and turn it off? Oh man, this is just going to keep buzzing and buzzing and buzzing until I do something about it, And then he's got like some profound wisdom, like when he's trying to help Naruto get over Jiraiya, and he says, we can't stay kids forever. And he's I love that he's blunt, but he's right.
Yeah.
I mean, he'll tell it to you, even though he knows that truth's going to hurt. He's going to say it the way it needs to be said. And, maybe some people need it soft pedaled, but I think, like with Naruto anyway, he was giving him the tough love thing,
Yeah.
Now it's time for you to be the sensei. You have to buy the ramen. You need to teach the next generation. You don't have time for tears. You've got a job to do. It's like, oh man, it's like, it's really good, And then even if you go back to when he was young and the whole like, the Chunin exams, I think he's got some great lines in there that sometimes I wish I was a cloud, just floating along, going wherever the breeze takes me, and that's in the middle of a battle with Tamari. He's sitting there, thinking his little things, and he's like trying to figure out what's going to happen next and how can he trick this girl, and wind's blowing and he's getting little cuts of his face, and he says, why do I have to fight a girl, And then the greatest moment of that whole battle is raises his hand and he surrenders. And it's like that, I've calculated out 200 possible outcomes and not one of them I win. So I'm about to lose my chakra, so I surrender. And it makes Tamari so mad. So mad she wins the match, but she never gets to retaliate against him because she knows it's coming. He's running out of chakra. He can't hold this up. And he just goes, I give up. And then the beauty of that is he moves up. he becomes the first of their group to be. Wait, now see that's their tunings, right?
He becomes a tuning.
Yeah. And then the
Yep.
rest, Naruto is so mad that he has that Shikamaru has the green vest. So mad. And it's so beautiful. Anyway, so Shikamaru has just the best little, because everything's a drag, everything, whatever. And it's not that I'm lazy, I just don't care. Stuff like that. He's got a lot of great little quotes. And he is funny and he is loyal. But he is that friend that will complain every step of the way.
One of my favorite moments with Shikamaru will have to be during the Chunin exams where he's pretending to be asleep while everything's going on. And everybody's like, are you pretending to sleep right now? So I just think that he's just one of those really funny characters. And if he can get out of it, he's going to try to get out of it.
Chewing on his arm and, he's like... I want to get involved. How does this affect me?
And then he's the first one that becomes a tuning. The person that loses is but then I like how they break it down. What he did was actually smart because he broke the whole situation down.
Unlike Naruto, he knew his limitations. He knew when to retreat, when to move forward. And when you think about it, that's really good. That's
true.
Super smart. He's doing it in a way where he's I don't want to do this. But it is the thing to do. Whereas, again, other great moments, they're trying to save Sasuke. And Shikamaru goes this whole speech about it's the sliding silver move. We're going to put Kiba in the front with Akamaru, and we're going to have Neji in the back using his Byakugan and all this stuff. And we're going to all act cool. And nobody make a move until I say so. And then as soon as they see somebody, Naruto goes running up.
Yeah.
And it's well, this idiot. Why
just imagine if he was a tuning. It would be horrible.
Because Naruto is all 100% heart. He never uses his head. He just heart. And he has that freaking nine tails in him that allows him to do that because he's got the ultimate trump card when the chips are down that he can get more chakra and, there are prices to pay for that stuff. But he's so confident and almost indestructible that he can just do that, and I think Naruto learned on that mission, though, that it put the rest of us in jeopardy by him running off half-cocked. And they also expected that. They expected him to do that. And here's Shikamaru trying to go, we're going to be smart about this.
And I think it's funny because after that, you start to notice he has Kakashi on a lot more of his missions with him because Kakashi can control him a little bit more. You know what?
Yeah, exactly. Do you know that meme? I think it's World of Warcraft. The guys are all planning and they're outside the door and they're like, you're going to use the magic spell and I'm going to use fireballs. We're going to pop the door and then we're going to do this and do that. And then this one guy just comes in and he goes, Leroy! And he just runs through and the rest of them are like, wait, what happened? Who breached the door? And all of a sudden they're getting swarmed and they can't, and the whole thing ends and everybody's dead, and it's just so funny because that's Naruto.
Yep. That's exactly what Naruto is, because you can't control that man. He's going to run. As soon as something gets his attention, he's running after it. And you're like, man, let's figure out what's happening first before you run over there and get us all killed. But do you? For my next question, I don't know if you've been keeping up with your character in the manga. He's kind of gotten to a more of an elite role right now, which is, to me, something I always thought he low-key should have had. Ever since I think Tamari kind of brought it up and was like, you know what, I think you would be a good Hokage. So I'm not for sure.
Spoiler alert.
It is a spoiler. I'm not for sure if you are familiar with what's going on in the manga. But if so, how does that feel to see that? And also, how does it feel playing a character and how the acting from him being young to him growing older? How does that acting have to change? How do you portray that? That's what I need to ask. Sorry.
Well, the nice thing is we're aging in real time too.
True.
So I think my voice was a little bit higher when I started the show, and then just time has kind of brought it down and down. I honestly, when we went from, so my bread and butter was doing those young hero characters in anime, high voiced. I could sound like a kid, but I wasn't a kid. I was a full on adult. And so when we went from Naruto to Naruto Shippuden, I thought, I'm going to be in trouble because my voice doesn't go that deep. I'm a high tenor. I'm a high tenor, and I really thought they were going to replace me like going into Shippuden. And I just remember going into that first session because it'd be like, whatever, what a drag. That was him young. And then it'd be like, whatever, what a drag. And I thought, is that different enough? And now it's whatever, what a drag. So they're very slightly, but our voices as we get older don't change that much. And they did keep me on for Shippuden. And they kept Miley on for Shippuden. They kept Miley on for Boruto. And her voice literally doesn't change because she's a female. So she's in that range. And if you listen to her Boruto, it's like she's at the bottom of her range trying to sound tough, like a man. That was me trying to sound like a man. That's very funny. It's you can tell she's like really trying to still have that Naruto in her, but be adult Naruto, Anyway, it's a challenge in that regard. And I love that they stay with us so that the original voice is thought authentic then, it's kind of nice, you kind of go, it grows with you. And as far as his story, I mean, it's very satisfying, all the things he's gone through. And, just the fact he didn't want to participate. He wasn't a joiner. He had kind of a negative attitude about everything, even about marriage. And, I just want to marry a girl who's not that pretty, not that ugly, have a couple of kids. Hopefully I'll die before everybody else so I don't have to see him. And it was like, that was his whole life plan, which he didn't, none of that happened.
Yeah.
He ended up having to get involved and care about stuff. Another funny moment is he wills himself back from the brink of death. He's about to die, and then he goes, I have to live to see that idiot become Hokage.
Oh, yeah. Doing the fourth great door.
Without me, right? And then 2, I call him an idiot on my deathbed. So I just, again, it's so many flavors, right? It's so true to Shikamaru. And, there's a lot of like, who's Naruto's best friend? Is it Shikamaru or is it Sasuke? That kind of thing. And the fact that I called him an idiot in just about every episode, like it's the brother that, the big brother that, I love him, but come on, it's just the fact that Shikamaru didn't treat him any different than anybody else, realized that there was potential there. He just treated him normally. And the way he normally treats everybody, except for Choji, is to be like, you're an idiot. Leave me alone.
But I like you see that progression, though, because in the beginning, it's like he just treats him neutral. But then he's like to the point where you start to see Naruto as like, yeah, this is a figure that I need to keep around because he's important.
In Naruto's childhood, neutral was a win.
Because I mean, everybody treated him horrible.
Literally shunned him and were staying away from them. And I just was basically like, that idiot kid. I don't care if he comes along or doesn't come along, or if you're gonna pay for ramen, you can come. I'm not. I just treat him like everybody else. And if you notice, Shikamaru treats Choji with kid gloves.
Yeah,
like he knows he's not gonna irritate. He knows exactly what to say and what not to say. Like he would never say anything about his weight or anything like that. Like he knows what Choji's sensitivities are. And Choji is a sensitive guy. And I love the fact that Shikamaru really does respect that. So he never calls him dumb, and he doesn't call him fat, and he doesn't, you know what I mean? The things that other people kind of call Choji throughout the series, which then enrage him, becomes a big, kind of joke in the show. And yeah, you don't want to do that. Like Shikamaru just stands on the side and goes, oh boy, you're toast now. Look, I don't think you know what you just did. I'm gonna watch the battle and sit over here, relax and while Choji takes you apart limb by limb. It's sort of like he's like Chewbacca in that way. Yeah, Chewbacca's friendly and nice, but he can rip your arms out of the socket. You know what I mean?
True, true. For my last three questions,
Yes.
for my next question, I want to ask you, what emotion do you find hard to portray?
In the booth, doing a lot of the crying stuff, a lot of the really heavy dramatic stuff. It definitely is a challenge because you're just in this weird little room. There's a plate of glass in front of you. There's an engineer and a director, and they're looking at you. And I mean, in a way, it is good because you're by yourself. And when you have to cry or do anything like that, the natural tendency is you don't want to do it in front of other people.
True.
We've all been to a funeral or something, and you can start to feel like you're like, I'm not going to cry. That is the trick, I think, to crying, by the way, is we don't want to cry. Nobody wants to cry. No, everybody wants to like keep it together and be strong, right? And so, especially men. And we're not afraid to let it out when it comes, and we're not going to manufacture it. But what we do is we spend the ramp up to it. We spend a lot of time pretending we are not going to cry, right? And then when they start talking about how, grandma used to give a lot of money to the church and she was like the cornerstone, and you're just like, she ran the Sunday school and, but we spend this whole thing going like this in the pew, right? And we're like, yeah, no, nobody saw that, and so you try not to cry, right? So that's particularly hard to do in anime because, but you can do it with your voice, like you're getting choked up and you're trying to talk through it, but you're fine. And there's and a lot of that is just observing when you are in that moment in real life to like, what's happening? Just be aware of it. Just record this, hit record while it's happening because you're not in control at that point. The emotions is going to come out and it's going to just do whatever it does. And all we do is we try and fight it, So I think that's real, but it is difficult to recreate that and seem authentic. And I was very nervous about those kind of scenes. And it's funny because you'd go home from a session and I'd be like on my way home and I'd feel like I'm kind of upset about, I'm upset. Like, is my wife mad at me? Was I supposed to call my mom or something? You know what I mean? Like you start running through the things of like, what did I do today? What's wrong? What's wrong? And I go, oh, Asuma died today. I went through that as Shikamaru, and now I'm going home and I feel sad, and I couldn't figure out like in my real life, why am I sad? There's nothing to be sad about. Things are going good for me or whatever. And then you realize it's like, oh yeah, because when you do that for 4 hours, you step into those shoes and you're trying to recreate that and feel those feelings and try and empathize with the character. And and some people even go further, like they, more like method type actors that really let it affect them. I used to, when I was a young actor, I would do things like I would think about tragic events that got me upset in the past. And what I found out was, for me anyway, those events started to have less meaning because I was using it as a tool. So if you think of I think of Grandma's funeral and I think about how I got upset and and then you go, I'm just going to think about Grandma's funeral. Then I go up on stage and I have to, cry or get upset. And I'm going to think about Grandma's funeral. I'm standing in the wings and I'm thinking about Grandma and I'm starting to get teared up. And then I go out on stage. And then by the end of the run of the show, I think about Grandma and I'm not getting upset. And I think about Grandma and I'm not, and then you go, wait, now I'm not getting upset that my grandma passed away. I kind of gave that part of myself to the project. You know what I mean? And you
That's
go,
what you're saying.
So to me, and plus it was like, it's not a button you can keep pushing. So for me, and there's a lot of different ways to act, and I'm not criticizing anybody or what they do or how their process is. But for me, it was like, take note of how you feel, how you're breathing, how you're quivering, how your voice sounds while it's happening, and then see if you can kind of recreate that. And I'll tell you, without having a thought in my head about anything in my personal life, but just focusing on what's happening in the script and then start doing those little things, it'll get you there. Now, those first recordings when you're starting, it sounds a little fake, and maybe take 2, take 3, all of a sudden it starts to take over, and your body, just because you've done it before, it starts to
pick on the cues.
So you're trying to say the line and your voice cracks, not in the exact same place or where you planned it to. It just cracked on its own. And you'll see the director go, "Oh, that was good. That was good." And you're like, because you're now in it, you've put yourself into that moment. You've really, and that is difficult because it takes a lot of energy to do that, and a lot of commitment to it, and the only real proof for whether you were successful in that is when you meet a fan and they say, when you cried when your father and you were playing Go, and he says, "You gotta let it out, boy," and they just said that just really affected me, and you go, oh. Because to me it's just screaming in a booth, and you're like, does this sound real? Is this anybody going to buy this? There's nothing worse than fake tears. There's nothing worse than like people acting through things. And so you're trying to take all that stuff, and intellectually it's make believe, it's fiction, and I'm trying to bring this thing to life. And so the audience is the true test. And I get a lot of feedback that say that those moments did ring authentic to them. And so I feel like, okay, good. I feel like I accomplished it. And I walked away that day feeling very upset because I was crying for such a long time in the booth, and you just want it to feel like it's real, like it's like that is what you're doing. And like I said, the only true judge of that is the person who watches it on the other end. And I don't know, there might be people who go, "Oh, that scene was so fakey. I didn't like," but I'm hearing from the people that loved it. So that's where you go, okay, I think I did my job, so that is the easy and the hard of it,
Okay. Well, my next question I want to ask you, I usually ask this question to everybody. It's one of my favorite questions to ask people. Is there anyone you want to shout out for being a good support system for you over the years that's basically helped you get to where you are right now? And can you tell us why it's important to have a good support system?
Yeah, I mean, well, my wife, she's been very supportive. She marries into this acting thing, but I met her through her sister, who is an actress.
Oh, okay.
We're friends. We worked on the Disney cruise ship, and then I would always kind of say to her sister, "It's like, what I hear you on that. I understand you have a sister. What's she like?" It's like, you don't want to know my sister. Forget it. And eventually I got to meet her, and then we of course fell in love and got married, and have this great life together. And I say my parents have been great, and I'll say it in this way: it's when you tell your parents that you're going to be an actor, or that's what you want to do, you can get a lot of resistance. There's some people that just, "No, you're not. If we're paying for school, you're going to do this," or whatever it is. Or, my parents had thoughts of what I should do. But I guess the best thing they could do is just, for me anyway, they just didn't get in my way. They didn't, they came to see a lot of the shows I did. They didn't come to everything I ever did. They were supportive in that regard, but they never said, "You can't do that." You're wasting your time on that. And in the same way, it's a lot of us kids that grew up in the 70s. We were just wild. You would walk to school, nobody watching you. Or we could ride our bikes. My mom would say, "Go outside, don't come back in this house until the street lights come on, because I don't want you kids messing up the house." And that's what we did in the summer. We would go play baseball. There were hours and hours of the day where my parents had no idea where it was. You know, you know what I mean? That just doesn't happen anymore. It's a different world, but that's just the way it was for everybody. You know, or you'd hear your mom yell for you, and you knew you had to get home. You know, you'd be home by 8 o'clock or whatever. She'd just scream in the neighborhood. You'd go, "Oh, that's my mom. I gotta go." And you go running home, and we'd be playing, you know, hide and go seek at night and crazy, fun stuff
Okay.
that I hope kids do today. I mean, we had a lot of freedom. Let me put it that way. And my parents gave me a lot of freedom, like with what I wanted to do and how I wanted to pursue it. And that is great support. Just let you do what you want to do. They don't have to pay for everything, and they don't have to drive you around. And you know, I mean, support can just be like, okay, you're free to go do that. You know, we're not inhibiting you from doing that. You know, we're gonna let you go do what you want. My dad used to say when I went to college for acting, my dad said, "Well, you can always be a salesman. That's good. That is a good skill to have. Being an actor, it's great. Like you can always do sales." So he thought that's fine. And then my degree is actually a teaching degree. So my mom was like, "Oh, well, you have a teaching degree, so you could get a job teaching." And I taught at a community college for a little bit, and they were very proud of that. Like, you know, oh, he's gonna teach, you know, do some stuff. But you know, that was more like taught a semester and I made $50 or something. And it was just like, you know, meanwhile I'm auditioning for commercials and trying to get stuff going.
So it was more like a
So
side job.
so yeah, so my parents were great in that you know, I was a feral child allowed to kind of do whatever I wanted, and I was a good kid though too. I didn't take that freedom and abuse it, you know. I wasn't trouble for them. I was the baby. My brother and my sister were trouble for them. I was easy. And I learned from my brother and sister's mistakes. I mean, to the fact that like I wasn't staying out past curfew, and if I wasn't drinking or doing anything bad. You know, I was playing video games and Dungeons and Dragons, stuff like
So you weren't
that.
worrying
That
too
was
much.
it. You know, reading
Okay.
comic books, and you know, I was that kid. You know, and they didn't
You were
need
the
to worry
baby?
about it. Yeah, as a baby. Yeah,
Yeah, you get it easy.
I
Us
got an
older
older
siblings.
brother, and my brother's 10 years older than me. So my brother and I can't say we've ever really had a fight
Oh, that's amazing.
because he's 10 years older. So I always looked up to him. He was also my babysitter. And then we had, you know, my sister in the middle. And my brother couldn't look at my sister without getting in trouble, right? My parents would be like, "Stop picking on your sister," whatever. But I was the baby. So I'm 4 and she's 8 or 9. My brother could go, "Tom, go hit Sue." And I'd be like, I was like
Okay.
I was like his little henchman, you know, like his little mini me. And so he could get me to do that. And so my sister and I, we fought like cats and dogs. And my brother and I, we shared a room, you know. And I even did some things like left some comic books out. Then my mom threw them away, which made my brother incredibly angry. But he never really took it out on me. He was just like, you need to put that stuff back. You know, the comic books are important. You know, that was more. And I was like, I got that. And I was like, yeah, yeah,
Mm.
comic books are important. We save them. We keep them flat. We put them in the bookshelf, you know. And he's like, you can read them if you want, but you have to put them back, you know. And so that was really great. You know, he was a good person to look up to. And then my sister and I get along now as adults, but not when we lived in that house.
I think all siblings are kind of like that. See, me being the older sibling, I think my brother he's only like 3 or 4 years younger than me, so we've always had like a close relationship.
But that's a
But
little bit more competitive, right? Because you're closer
hmm
in age. So like we would wrestle, but there was not even a fair fight. So for me, it was fun. And my brother was very, you know, when we play football in the house and my brother'd get on his knees and I could use my feet, you know, like it was like that, you know.
okay, I see what it's saying. So he basically had to try to restrain himself, where I didn't necessarily have to
But,
restrain myself as much.
right. When you're this kind of closer in age, those fights can get real, you know, those, especially the wrestling and the throwing each other on the couch and stuff. And then somebody falls off the couch and like my brother and I were playing football. And we broke a vase. It's just typical Brady Bunch script.
hmm
And my sister was like, I'm gonna tell. Because now she had ammo on us. And so we glued that thing together, and then we switched it out with something that my mom had. We put it in the back of the shelf, and it was probably 6 months before we got caught. And then it was like, oh, who broke the vase? There's a crack in it. It was a little bird. It was like a candy dish, and it had a little tail. It was blue, and we broke that tail off. And we glued it and thought we could hide it. Like I said, we got away with it for about 6 months, but after that, then I don't know how we kept my sister quiet, but it was a while before my parents, found out.
See, me and my brother, we would probably try to put it together to a point where if somebody else touch it, it'll fall apart, and then you just be like, "Look what you did!"
Yeah, right, exactly. The person who found it, not the. Yeah, exactly.
But my last question I want to ask you, basically, do you have any advice for anybody that wants to get into the voice actor game? Do you have any schools they should go to? Any advice or anything for them they should know?
What I tell a lot of people is, it's funny again because people say, I want to be a voice actor. I'm like, I always think of it as be an actor. Be in a play, take an improv class, stuff like that. Stuff that is going on in your community. But if you want to do something online and you want to do something that broadens your scope, Steve Bloom, Bloomvox Studios. Steve, very prolific voice actor. He's got this beautiful voice. He was in Cowboy Bebop. He was in Naruto. He played Zabuza, the guy with the big sword.
Zabuza.
And he played, he's Orochimaru, right?
Oh, man.
So he's got this great class online called Bloomvox Studios. They have like a community board. So like people that are working or trying to submit, you can say, hey, this company was asking me to do this. I think it sounds shady. What do you think? And other professionals will, chime in and go, oh, hey, don't ever do that. Don't pay them to do an audition or whatever that thing is. So it's a great resource when you're trying to do it. There's places to go there that like help you build a reel and how to do business in the business side of it,
Okay.
And sorry, I got to cough one more time.
It's okay. Do you need to step and get some water? You can.
Out, right? So, and then they have a lot of like building a character and how to use your voice for this or warm-up exercises and, all sorts of things. You get a lot of that. Like I said, if you take theater classes in college, or go to a performing arts school or something like that, you'll get a lot of that like voice and how to take care of your instrument and how to use it properly and stuff like that. But they have a lot in Steve's classes. He has a lot of that kind of stuff, and they focus on a bunch of different. They bring in a lot of guest stars to talk, and kind of you can ask questions, and so that is a great school, and it's a great resource. And so I highly recommend that.
Okay.
For people that are starting out, there's a lot of different things, but I know Steve's is great. So, and there's some books out there. I think Yuri Lowenthal wrote, and his wife Tara wrote How to Be a Working Voice Actor. And it's recently been, I think there's a new edition out now where he's updated it because a lot has changed.
True. Technology changes every year.
Just the fact that everybody has one of these in their pocket, and this is a recording studio, and this is a video studio, and then you have, a couple clicks of a button, you can broadcast it on TikTok or Instagram or, whatever, YouTube or whatever, and you can be putting things out there and trying things, and you could get an audience and start building something and create something. The barrier to entry is so much lower, except for the fact that everybody can do it.
True.
So everybody will do it, and everybody is doing it. And so that's the thing. You got to raise above the noise. But that was always the problem. That's, you go to college, you got to get in, you got to get accepted to a program. If you're in an acting program, you're going to have to get accepted into the department, and you have to audition, and then nobody kind of teaches you that stuff. You kind of learn it along the way, like by doing plays in high school and doing plays in community college or community theater or whatever it is. I always thought theater was a great way to do it. There's a lot of different skills though, because film is small, like when you're acting. Stage is huge because you got to reach that back row, and it's different ways of using your voice and warming up and that kind of stuff. So it's a whole new world, and I think a lot of people are charting their own course, and there isn't really a roadmap. Everybody's got a different way to get there. And if you talk to you talk to voice actors all the time, I think we all have different paths. They're similar in a lot of ways, but we all kind of came to it in different ways. And some people come from the music industry, and some people, but a lot of us were musical theater kids or, just actors, and thought, I'll try that, or this is an opportunity. And now, maybe because of that, I think a lot of people are just going, I'd like to be a voice actor, like just a voice actor, So I always find that funny when people say it, or just interesting funny, not funny like, haha, You want to be a voice actor? That's hysterical. But I found improv is a very great tool. My background was in comedy. That's what I was doing on the Disney cruise ships, was improv comedy. Because you make strong choices, you get a suggestion and you don't have time to think about it, so you dive in and you make a big choice and you make it work. And most of what we do when we're doing anime is cold reading. You read the script, and then they want you to perform what you just took in, and really it's the best idea wins. And it's like, well, the idea that you had on this day at this time might be different than the idea you had on the next day at a different time, and you, oh, why didn't I think of that? Or like when you see that who actually got the part, you go, oh, I see what they're doing. Oh, yeah, that makes more sense. I should have done it something like that. I had the advantage of a lot of the auditions that I've done in voice work, that going in and auditioning for the director and the producers. So they'll tell you, like, could you do it a little this way, or can you tone it down? These days, you submit your auditions blind. They'll give you a little script, and they'll say, and you got to go, what do I think this is? What should I do with this? And then you throw your best. And that's where improv helps, because if nothing else, you'll feel good about your choice. Like, I made a choice, might not be the right choice, but I made a choice. I stuck to it, and it's consistent. And hopefully they'll see that, like, I can do something else, if they needed to tone it down or lift it up. So getting good at reading scripts and knowing what the writer is trying to tell you, that is a great skill. And that's like acting classes. That's where you learn that kind of stuff, like how to interpret a script. And there's a lot of tricks to it. And believe it or not, it's in things like commas and periods and exclamation points. The things we take for granted.
Yeah.
And what the writer is exactly saying or not saying, and then saying, oh, this scene is really about this. He's mad about something else, or whatever. And that takes just experience and actually watching a lot of stuff. So whatever your favorite shows are, watch those shows and try and figure out what makes this good and what makes this other show bad, or why do I think this is a better, I like this actor in this role, but I see the same actor in this role and he's just not, it's not right. And there's a lot of factors into that. So you start to kind of process all that information, and it all becomes, and also too, like with comedy, it's knowing, being able to recognize, like, oh, there's a Buster Keaton bit that would work here. You know what I mean? Like, oh, there's that old, I'm going to turn the ladder and you're going to duck. But then when you stand back up, I'm coming back around the other way and you don't see it coming. Like that could work in this situation or something, and working out all. But you have to have kind of a Rolodex, a library of movies and entertainment, so that you can make a reference like, well, that's just like Star Wars, or that's just like Naruto, or that's just like, the Little Mermaid, right? You can say, And then immediately we know, oh, you're talking about the Sebastian song, right? And okay, I got it. I get where we're going with that. And I grew up on Looney Tunes. I grew up on Bugs Bunny and Wile E. Coyote and Foghorn Leghorn, and and those are very big, broad character caricatures in a way that everybody you can reference. And the odd thing about that is all of that stuff is referencing other things, from other movies and other shows that I may not know the original reference. I'm sure Bugs Bunny is based on some New York character that Mel Blanc knew, whether it be somebody from a play or from a movie or just somebody he knew, So there's always takes on that. But just having that Rolodex of interesting characters in your head that you can call upon and say, oh, it'd be good here. Somebody with a Southern accent might be really fun in this role. Yeah. I did a version of Midsummer Night's Dream with a New York accent. And I did it like Jackie Gleason from The Honeymooners. And it worked because it's the same character. It's that same thing. And people were like, oh, that's so funny. I never thought of that before. And it would be like, I will roar. That'll do any man's heart good to hear me. I will roar. That the Duke will say, oh, let him roar again. Oh, let him roar again. It works. Because he is that sort of character, the bottom from Midsummer Night's Dream. And, so it's having as much of a Rolodex as you can build and being able to talk about culture and movies. And there's a lot now that you gotta know your Star Wars. You got to know your Star Trek. You got to know and I'm just talking about the sort of pop culture stuff. And then beyond that, there's movies, dramas, Academy Award, start by watching every Academy Award winning film, just so that when we talk about Bridge Over the River Kwai or something like that, you'd be like, I've heard of it. I kind of know what we're talking about. You could maybe make a reference to it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's what I just consume as much as possible and, take a lot of notes, remember in your head, like what's funny, what tickles your funny bone, and then try and reuse it in different ways,
Okay. I think that's great.
And listen to voices, listen to accents, and see if you can imitate them. That helps a lot too,
True. I think that's some amazing advice. And with that, we end today's episode. I want to thank you for coming on.
Episode in history.
No, that is nowhere near that because I literally I did the voice actors from the anime Sandland, and that was 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Oh well, we're going.
We getting there. We
edit it down.
But I want to thank you for coming on. I've enjoyed our conversation. I've learned so much more about the voiceover industry and learned a lot about some of the behind the scenes of Naruto. Hopefully you listeners did too. Before we close out, I just want to allow you the opportunity to basically plug yourself and tell the audience where they can find you.
You can at the Real Time Gibbous on TikTok and on Instagram. I'm on.
You got a Blue Sky?
Blue Sky, that's the new one. Thank you you knew what I was going for. It all helps just having followers. My TikTok account is crazy big, and it's probably going to go away January 9th. So.
Oh. So crazy.
And all you 534,000 followers, please go over to Instagram and help me out. Because my Instagram's like 18,000, and then it's absurd how many followers I have. It's all Shikamaru related, and I try and do a lot of funny stuff on there. So check it out. I got shows coming up all the time. I got all sorts of things that I'm working on, but I usually will announce when I can announce on TikTok or on Instagram. Well, I'll do them both. So that's the place to kind of keep track of me and the things that I'm doing. So go there, and then you can go to in my profile, you go to Linktree, and it links you to a bunch of other stuff that I'm doing. So.
For sure. And I'll have all those links and everything posted below. And with that, I just want to say, peace!
What a drag. Oh, man. Whatever.
Oh, thanks. That was amazing.
Thank you so much.